Hey everyone, and welcome to today's episode of The Magic Box. I'm Tristan Sean Gregson here with Kyle Eck. It's a very exciting time because we are in spoiler season for Dragon's Mail.
The best of all seasons.
Yeah, it really makes our job so much easier and everything so much more exciting. We get to talk about kind of our favorite topics all combined into one. New Magic cards, exciting Magic cards, and cube-worthy Magic cards. So, there's a lot to talk about on this show. I know we talked about artifacts last time. We'll bring that back briefly and see if there's anything else we kind of missed that we wanted to touch on. We've got, hopefully, a gold section for you today. But before we go into any of those things, we've got so many more things to cover. We've got 2 pack scenarios for you today. We're going to do both. We've got to pick a pack, obviously. We've got some shout-outs and a sweet scenario. But where to begin first?
Let's do the pick one, pack one. Seems for everybody.
Banging right into it. I mean, we're trying to keep this at 2 hours, and there's so much information to get to today. So we're just going to go headlong into it. Here is our pick one, pack one for today. As the room fills, I'll let Eck tell you what's here.
Alright, so we have Nephalia Drownyard, Gristlebrand, River Boa, Sorin, Lord of Innistrad, Bonfire of the Damned, Sublime Archangel, Goblin Settler, Smother, Arcane Sanctum, Fauna Shaman, Brainstorm, Misty Rainforest, Natural Order, Chandra the Firebrand, and Standstill.
Okay.
This is an interesting pack.
Yeah, I'm going to say on pure power level, what kind of jumps out at me first is Gristlebrand. How about you?
I mean, that's certainly one of the most powerful cards in the pack, but it is also a pretty bold first pick, I would say. Just because that, like, Gristlebrand just doesn't go into a ton of decks, so you're making a pretty firm, this is where I want to be.
I'm either saying I'm going to reanimate it, or I'm going to probably play a pretty slow control deck where I'm going to have the opportunity to hardcast it, and that control deck's going to have a lot of black in it.
Yeah.
I think that I'm willing to make those concessions because of the pure power level of the 7/7 flying lifelinker that may also give me the opportunity to draw 7 cards.
It's certainly one of the best reanimation targets. So if you want to play Reanimator, I think there are worse ways to go, especially because I think that because this pack, the way this pack is set up, I think it's fairly reasonable to assume you could get Drownyard back, and Drownyard fits well into the reanimation deck. So that's certainly a fine pick. Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't blame anybody necessarily for taking a bit of a safer pick, kind of like a Misty Rainforest or Brainstorm, something of that nature. The problem is the cards that are easy to cast in this pack are just not at the same power level that the difficult to cast ones are. Mm-hmm. Like, one of the cards that jumped out at me out of this pack was Sorin, but I really don't like taking gold cards as my first pick. Gristlebrand is certainly a bold move, but it's one that could definitely have a really high payoff potential, which I like.
I don't think you lose a whole lot by taking it here. I think one thing about Cube is kind of you could see a next pack that has what you feel like is 8 first picks, or maybe a pack that has like 1 first card that would be high power level you consider a first pick. There can be a lot of variance there. So Gristlebrand could be a throwaway, but I think that it's a risk that is 100% worth taking. I mean, there are other cards I like in this pack. I like actually most of these cards, and I think that there are great decks for all of them. I just don't think that they come to the same power level you're getting with Gristlebrand. I do think that Sorin is very high up there. I mean, obviously Planeswalkers are very strong. It is a 2-color card, and right out of the gate, I don't think that's where I'd want to be.
Yeah.
I think if a Gristlebrand wasn't here, it would kind of be Sublime Archangel or Bonfire. Probably towards Sublime Archangel.
I think that packs like this are really more about personal preference and or what you feel like playing that day. Because you could very easily just take Fauna Shaman.
Could you?
Like, Fauna Shaman's a fine card.
Compared to the power level of the other cards of this pack, you would want to take Fauna Shaman?
You could take, if you want to, you could take Natural Order. You could build around that.
Yeah, you could build around. I mean, like, Natural Order is similar to Gristlebrand, where
you could take Chandra the Firebrand or Goblin Settler and try and play the LDs.
I don't think you could take those.
I mean, you could easily just take Brainstorm.
You could easily take.
Yeah.
I do love me a
Mr.
Brainstorm.
Rainforest. You could even take Bonfire. I mean, there are a number of.
I think it really, if you were going to make an argument against Gristlebrand, I think it would have to be for Natural Order. I think that that's the effect we want. I mean, either we're taking Gristlebrand because that is the powerful card that we can make powerful things happen with, or we're going to take the Natural Order because that is the enabler for the powerful things that we are going to be retrieving. Maybe we're reanimating, maybe we're cheating to play with Sneak Attack, maybe we're Tooth and Nailing, maybe we're just casting Gristlebrand in the long run, which can still be really good. You're still playing limited Magic. We're just laying a 7/7 Lifelinker is a great way to get back into a game late, and it has evasion. These are all things that I love. I think that I've definitely drafted Gristlebrand with the hope that I would reanimate it, and ended up finding ways to cast it more often than I thought I would in the long run.
Yeah, I mean, I think Gristlebrand is certainly one of the splashiest possible first picks, just because when it works, it's going to be awesome, and it's either going to be great or it's going to be like a total throwaway pick.
I mean, yes, it could be a throwaway. You could get past a slew of aggro red cards from here, and you'll never see that Gristlebrand again. It'll just be in your pile, and you might be happy that someone else doesn't end up having it. I mean, I drafted a mono black deck a few weeks ago, where I had a Jace 16th pick, and at the end of the day, I was happy that Jace wasn't in somebody else's deck, so it wasn't the worst thing ever.
Yeah.
Why don't we get more viewers? Because we just started. Give a little time to ramp up.
Yeah.
Things are only going to get a little more interesting from here. So yeah, I think that was probably, so far, that is our easiest pick one, pack one, I think.
I don't know about that. There was one with Skull Clamp in it. I felt like that was pretty easy.
I didn't think so. We didn't have a lot of back and forth on this. I felt like it was like Gristlebrand.
I mean, that's just kind of what happens in a lot of Q packs where the power level kind of gets flattened out. I mean, Gristlebrand is really, really, really powerful, and while there is a lot of risk inherent to taking that first, I think that it's worth the payoff. And worst case scenario, you draft a 44 card deck instead of a 45 card deck.
We've got Norbert has made it today. Looks like Rob Martin might be here, if that's who it says he is. And we've got brand new viewers who don't even know how the show works yet. So
next,
excited that everybody's here. Now, for you new viewers and those who are at home, I think this is way more exciting than Pick One, Pack One. We're going to bring you Scenario One. Still 4 picks into a draft. Let's look at what we've got.
So this is a bit later on in another sample draft. So far, you have 4 cards picked so far. You have picked a Lightning Bolt, a Demonic Tutor, a Wooded Foothills, and a Wasteland.
And we'll assume that was in order. I don't think that matters so much, but we'll just say you picked one Lightning Bolt,
sure,
and then you came, so on and so forth. And then
right,
you just got a pack of 11 cards. Let's see.
So the 11 cards you got passed are Jungle Shrine, Sunder, Genesis, Fire Diamond, Maelstrom Pulse, Spectral Procession, Pack Rat, Strategic Planning, Oath of Druids, Swans of Bryn Argol, and Porcelain Legionnaire.
Okay, this is exciting. I like this one.
So this is, I feel like this is a pretty common situation where you take early cards that are either non-color committal or very easily splashable. You don't really have an identity yet of what you're trying to do. You don't have reanimation spells, you don't have Tinker, you don't have a bunch of red aggro cards. Like, you're very much open, and you see a pack that is also very open.
I think this is a great scenario. This is a great pack, because this is the Your Cards section of this is something that comes up a lot. Lightning Bolt is a great high power card. Demonic Tutor, very high power card. You're going to be taking them, and you're not going to feel committed to them. Oh, apparently you need to format your disc, Eck.
No, I don't.
And you've also got 2 non-basic lands, which you're going to value very highly. Fixing a little bit more than something like a Wasteland. But a Wasteland is probably going to end up in most non-3-color decks in Cube, and it's probably going to be very good. So I think a scenario very similar to this, in a lot of other iterations of this, will come up a lot. Now, moving down to the pack section, I think we can eliminate the blue cards from this pack as seemingly synergistic as they are. Having something like Sunder and Swans in the same pack. Now, let's say you happen to see that Seismic Assault. It is game on, baby, because you have
living the dream.
You have the full package at that point. Granted, you only need Sunder and Seismic Assault to really win the game by yourself, I feel like. But there's even more going there. But we can eliminate the blue cards. Now, is there anything else we can easily... We can easily eliminate Spectral Procession.
Yeah.
The chat is already kind of jumping on either Fire Diamond or Pack Rat.
Or Maelstrom Pulse.
Interesting on the Maelstrom Pulse. I am less inclined to take that over the previous two.
Really?
Yeah, I think Fire Diamond and Pack Rat would be cards I would take over Maelstrom Pulse right here.
Really? To me, I think it's Pack Rat Maelstrom Pulse.
Okay.
I think that, unless you want to go like a really weird direction, like take Oath or something wacky.
I don't think that's wacky. I don't think that's bad at all. I'm snapping off that Oath.
You're snapping off that?
I am snapping off that Oath.
This is certainly a fine place for Oath because you don't have a guy yet,
okay.
which is key, and you have Demonic Tutor, so you effectively have 2 Oaths.
Yes, exactly.
Like Demonic Tutor fits perfectly into like. It makes, when you see cards like Tinker or Oath of Druids, like the 1-card combos, like when you already have Demonic Tutor, they get so much better.
Yes.
Because you just immediately like, oh, now I have double the fun, so much easier to play them.
Now, in our cube, since there's not a lot of, there's not, when we talk about combo in our cube, it's not Storm combo, it's not Dream Halls combo, it's not, of those flavors. I think that, it's more about finding those combinations like Oath of Druids with big creatures and not small creatures. It should be pointed out that Smedster, or also known as Sam Party, Mock's competitor, is taking Legionnaire because he is a Zoo fan.
Sure.
But here I'm definitely taking Oath of Druids, and I think that this kind of comes from just experience in our cube playing with Oath of Druids, and I don't think that many cubes have experience playing with Oath of Druids right now. And maybe it's a personal crusade, but I really like pushing for this card, especially if you currently run something like Birthing Pod in your cube. This is a swap that I made, Pod for Oath, and Oath has been a lot of fun, especially because it hasn't been all one-sided, and a lot of people forget that it is technically a uniform effect. So
I honestly, I totally see the argument for Oath, and I think that's a fine pick, again, stepping out into a bold direction. I'm fine with taking Maelstrom Pulse out of this pack. You already have a black card you're for sure going to play. You already have the ability to get green. Like, it fits in with, like, your first 2 picks and your Wooded Foothills really, really well. And, like, again, like, you could end up green-red with a little bit of a splash of black for Demonic Tutor and Maelstrom Pulse. You could end up green-black with a splash for Lightning Bolt. You could end up black-red with a splash for Maelstrom Pulse. Like, there's a lot of different ways you can go.
Like, I don't know. I don't know about Pulse, just because I have Wooded Foothills. Like, I think I would want to take the Jungle Shrine before I took the Maelstrom Pulse.
Yeah, I mean...
Like, I think Fire Diamond is a very safe pick. I think that Pack Rat is a very good pick. And I think that Jungle Shrine is an even safer pick than taking Fire Diamond. And I think that I would rather have Oath of Druids over any of those cards, personally.
I mean, I don't know. I also really like Pack Rat.
No, I know.
Pack Rat is just such a beating, even in Cube, to play against.
In the cards that the chat has mentioned, I like Pack Rat the most. I mean, I don't think the chat has had a lot of experience with Oath of Druids, and that's totally fine. I have a mild crush on that card right now.
Oath is certainly the exciting one.
It's exciting, and you're early enough in a draft that you can still build around it. So you're going Pulse. For the record, you're going Pulse?
I'll go Pulse.
And I'm going Oath.
Sure.
Okay, and that was a really wide open one. That is a normal scenario that you're going to see a lot in Cube. The next example we have is, I feel like kind of an opposite of that. You've drafted 4 picks that are very much towards more of a narrow strategy.
So here's the next one. Turn this one off.
So here, Eck will tell you what we're looking at.
Alright, so same situation. You have 4 cards so far. You're looking at an 11-card pack. Your cards so far are Green Sun Zenith, Thragtusk, Eternal Witness, and Huntmaster of the Fells. So
we got a pretty good Green Sun Zenith package. We're definitely playing green, obviously. And maybe we're playing the Huntmaster. I don't know yet. Things are still pretty open. What do we see in 11 cards?
In our 11 cards, we have Firemane Avenger, Masticore, Intuition, Sealed Primordium, Fetid Heath, Drana Calastriad Bloodchief. Is that her name?
Yeah, Bloodchief. Yeah.
Terminus, Devastation, Sinkhole, Dark Confidant, a Quarter Paladin.
Okay. So, luckily in this pack, there isn't a clear runaway green creature, because
there's no green guy with power and toughness to just kind of windmill. These are...
these are mostly made up, Sam. I mean, these are things that are very much can happen. While we've been drafting, we've tried to be more aware of the things we're seeing. I know that one of our earlier pick-a-packs was a pack from a cube draft we did at a league draft. But, a lot of the scenario things, we kind of want to try to be evocative about it if it isn't something that came up organically. Just because, if there was a green creature that cost 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 mana, I'm probably just taking that one.
Yeah, like I said, if there is a green power and toughness in this pack, I think I'd take it. I like taking Masticore here.
Okay. Tell me more.
Well, I mean, like, you're very clearly green, like, obviously, and you have a very sweet pile of cards. But I mean, the traditional problem with green of not being able to kill anything, Masticore kind of helps you out with that.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, it's not a great pick, but it's fine. And green, just naturally, because you're probably going to be having some elves or some ramp or something, you're going to be able to do a pretty good machine gun with it. I mean, your alternatives here are also just pretty slim. I mean, Seal of Primordium is okay, but I really don't like taking it this early. If you wanted to take a creature, you for sure have to move into another color.
I feel like we do mention what the chat's choices were, which is important. We're not just doing this for the after the fact. We are trying to help the after the fact audience as to what people are interested in. Ooh, I really like that Sam loves Intuition here. That card is gross, but it can be very narrow. I understand your argument for Masticore, and it's funny because so many people kind of crap on Masticore these days that I almost think you could wheel it.
That would be... This pack is not good enough for that.
I mean, you could take it and maybe wheel the Seal of Primordium. Again, it kind of depends on how educated the drafters are in your draft, because in our cube, cards like Seal of Primordium are very strong.
Intuition's actually a pretty interesting pick.
I agree that Intuition's a very strong pick. And so far the chat is like, Bob, Masticore, Intuition. Those were people. I think Usman mentioned Devastation as well, which I think Devastation is actually a surprisingly safe pick. Additionally, because you're already touching on red for Huntmaster, you're already drafting green, so you kind of want access to a kill effect. And
I don't know if I would qualify Devastation as a kill effect.
Well, if you can't kill anything, you're going to go to a scenario where you can't get out of something.
It's like defining nuclear weapons as home defense.
That sounds like a United States policy to me.
Yeah.
I have yet to kind of like land on something. So when I look at this, yes, I like Masticore a lot. Masticore is probably my top 3. I think it's Masticore, Bob, a Quarter Paladin for me, probably.
Wow, interesting.
I like a Quarter Paladin a lot because
I like...
Deck could use some more blue. I do like that comment.
Yeah.
And Intuition is a blue card.
I like Intuition, especially when you already have Witness, and you could potentially end up seeing a Genesis or other sweet cards with it. I kind of like taking Dark Confidant. I like playing green-black. And...
You could still... the thing about Huntmaster is you're still going to find a way to get in your deck if you take a non-red or green card.
Exactly. Like, I don't see Huntmaster as like we're dedicated to red at all pick. I like Masticore because you're green, you're going to have trouble killing stuff. A Quarter Paladin feels really like you've gone deep in a way that is terrifying to me.
See, it's interesting because I really like a Quarter Paladin in the kind of aggressive green-white strategies, and I think without seeing a green creature in this pack, you could take a Quarter Paladin and nudge your way towards another color and still be in the aggressive train. Similar to the Naya Zoo style. So that's why green is... I mean, I think a Quarter Paladin is my top 3 cards here. It's just funny that I'm surprised at how many people are interested in taking Masticore, considering how much crap he gets.
And the thing about Masticore is that he doesn't fit everywhere, but when he's good, he's great. Like, he's either... Like, he's a bench... He's on the bench a lot of times, but then every once in a while, like, it's the right situation for him, and he comes in, and, just kind of wins you the game by himself. And then, like, this is a situation where having the ability to clear the way, for your other stuff is going to be good. You're going to have plenty of mana to make him work well. And
because you're playing green.
Yeah. Like, you're just going to naturally end up with some amount of Land War Elves or Cultivates or something. And, Masticore is just a sweet one when it's good. It's just not always good.
The cube is powered, so I don't know if that affects your decision in this particular pack. But for the chat is kind of bouncing back between Masticore and Bob. It feels like now, and recognizing that we don't currently have any blue in our deck. So I guess that's another nod towards intuition. I gotta say, I'm a huge intuition fan, and when kind of like looking at the scenario very first, it didn't really register with me with what you could do with it, but you do have Eternal Witness, you have Green Sun Zenith for Eternal Witness, so that's like you have 2 Eternal Witnesses, so you could get even more value with the intuition. I might be able to get talked into intuition. I think if I was to see this, it would be Masticore or Quarter Paladin for me, because I would want to be trying to like play some kind of curve.
I think it's Masticore or Intuition for me. I think Intuition is definitely a sweet pick.
Oh, like, definitely. Like
it's like that is.
If we weren't playing for keepsies, if we were just playing for funsies, like if this is the midnight draft,
Intuition is the flashy pick.
I'm taking Intuition, and
Intuition
then like
is the flashy
as
pick.
soon as I see increasing confusion, I'm not making friends. So yeah, if this draft takes place while the sun is up, I'm probably taking Masticore, and if it's a late night hot action, it's Intuition time.
All right, so we've gotten through those.
But blistering speed. It's so weird that. Like, I want to spend for days on it, but I just want to, like, sit on an image of a pack forever.
Yeah.
So look, before we get to new content, we should go back to response from old content. And we'd like to thank Usman, actually, very much. I don't know if he can currently hear us, because he was saying he might not be able to. But we will do more of them. With the way the show is structured, we want to do more of these pick-pack scenarios. They won't all be 5th pick. But one thing about Cube that I've kind of found is you really don't have to make a decision, pick 2, pick 3. I mean, maybe not even your first 15 picks. But we will be delving more into interesting, deeper scenarios to comment on the chat and not just completely get sidetracked by my own thoughts. But recently we talked about drafting what it's like to draft kind of the guilds or 2-color combinations in Cube. And when we talked about there was a surprising amount of inquiry about, really, is that how we feel about things? Is it as weak as you feel it is? And our good friend Usman, who at this point I feel like of all the people in the Magic community, Usman is the person that I like know the most but have never actually met.
Right.
Does that make sense?
He's like a pen pal.
Yeah. Well, it's weird because we've each heard each other's voices, we've each seen each other on video at this point. But this is like the one person in all of Magic that I have had that much of a connection with, but not actually had a chance to meet. Everyone else, like one way or another, we've shook hands, and that's been exciting. So Usman will rectify this one of these days. But until then, he was nice enough to kind of go on his own blog, and I was there in Minneapolis last year. I missed you, so he can hear us, which is good at this point. He made a response on his blog post. He drafted a red-blue deck, and he won his draft. And he put up his card pool and kind of asked how you would build it. And I know Eck had already responded to him, but I hadn't had a chance. My feelings of his pool and kind of, maybe this talks about is it and is it good, is it not? But kind of what we have. So if we'll bring up Usman's card pool that he posted. It's I'd rather be cubing. Is it .blogspot or is it just .com? I can't remember. If you just Google the phrase "I'd rather be cubing," you'll find Usman's blog. Obviously, a great resource.
So, Usman had posted this on Twitter a few days ago, and I kind of hopped in that conversation, and then he put it on Reddit, and I kind of had made my similar comments. For the backstory, these are the cards in blue and red that Usman had drafted in a cube draft, and he ended up going 3-0. And the question posed kind of to the community was, if these are your relevant cards, right, everything else is either off-color, bad, whatever, how do you build it?
Right.
And I feel like that's actually, this is a really interesting pool because it highlights really well one of the biggest problems that we talked about with blue-red, which is that tension between fast and slow, expensive spells and being aggressive.
Yeah, in the Is It episode, go back, watch those shows if you haven't. There's a lot of great information in there. But we talk about this kind of duality of the red and blue colors in Cube where they don't have a lot of great overlap and they're usually trying to do two very different things. And a lot of that stems from blue not having a lot of early drops or not having a lot of interactive things going on at 1 to 3, maybe even 1 to 4. So it makes it very hard to combo with all of Red's aggressive creatures, which you see in this card pool. And obviously the first thing I thought was, there's 18 sweet red cards. Now we just need to fit in 6 blue cards and make a deck.
That's kind of the way I went with it. When I initially looked at this pool and chatting briefly with Usman about it, what I was leaning towards was you have all of these really good aggressive red creatures. You want to maximize their effectiveness because like slapping Goblin Guide into a random control deck isn't very good. So the way I would have built this is basically like jam all of the red cards that we have here and then play the lightest amount of blue possible. Specifically, like I think my list had Preordain, Remand, Is It Charm, Miscalc, and Psionic Blast as the only blue cards.
No Condescend?
No Condescend. And
I think I followed you. Wait, did you include Mystical?
No.
Okay, good.
So my idea was that it's the lightest amount of blue because you want early red and double red, so you don't want to play a lot of islands. And, Sonic Blast is just a good burn spell.
Right, it's just
like
it's
fine.
just Char again. It's
but
if you were to take a blue spell and make it red, that would be what it is already.
Like, you just kind of have as light a blue touch as you can, and the cards that are the cheapest and interfere with your game plan the least. Like, Remand, Miscalc are fine if you're trying to be aggressive, just to like.
Well, the thing about a card like Miscalc is it's never a blank, and the fact that you have spells like Searing Blaze isn't so great on your opponent's turn, but you should have access to like Lightning Bolt, Char, but also have Miscalc in your hand leads to a lot of open-ended opportunities to make a play one way or the other.
I think my list also...
People can chat here. We are chatting here. If you have feelings about what we're looking at or the topics that will be coming up in the near future, please chime in the chat.
My list also had the Shriekmaw, because it's with the Misty, Badlands, and Underground Sea, it's kind of free. It's as close to free as you're going to get.
Sure. I didn't actually compile a 23. I was just looking at this. Again, the snap feeling I had is it's like, well, I have a mono red deck, but I'm shy some cards, and because I'm shy some cards, what can I just touch on for the blue? And I feel the same way with Eck. It's like I don't want Preordain or Mystical Tutor. I do want Remand, Is It Charm, Miscalc, Psyblast, probably Condescend. And how many cards does that get me to? One. How many did I name? Like 5? And then I'm like 1 or 2 short.
You can play that Bone Splitter.
No, that was included. I think it's like 18 cards with the Bone Splitter.
I was just looking at trying to play the cheapest blue spells that didn't mess with my game plan.
Exactly, and I think in that same regard, you could probably get away with playing the Shriekmaw. So I don't know how much that really felt like an Izzet deck to me when I was building it. And the real question from Usman here is Upheaval and Mystical Tutor, yay or nay? And I think if I'm trying to play that aggressive red strategy, I don't want that. I mean, it's like an interesting backup plan. It's kind of like if things don't go right, I can kind of reset the game. And I think I would rather have that in the sideboard, and which is weird because I'm one of those people that will first pick Upheaval and then kind of commit to it.
Yeah, you do like Upheaval a lot.
I do like Upheaval a lot. Because again, I didn't build at 23. If I was still short, I think that would be the next plan I would bring in. But I wouldn't want to main deck it, which means, like again, we're not playing Venser, we're not playing Sower, we're not playing Cryptic, Control Magic, actual Counterspell, Preordain.
Like, I just don't want to play all these like 2/2s for 4 and 5 mana in my really aggressive.
Like if I can't Goblin Guide into Ash Zealot every game or Chandra's Phoenix, then I just like my deck is not going to win the matches it needs to win.
Yeah, exactly. Like it's just going to be bad. So
that's my feeling. I don't know if this is a great example of what an Izzet deck would be. I think this is kind of a red deck splashing any color it'd have access to, and this time around it just happens to be blue, which are fine. Those are fine decks. So I don't know if it's the best example of like straight Izzet. This is an Izzet deck.
The answer, however, is it good? And the answer is yes.
Yes, it's good. I mean, look, you have Goblin Guide, Stormcrypt Noble, Grim Lavamancer, Gorehouse Chainwalker, Stormhood Berserker, Ash Zealot, Plate of Geopy. Like,
how would we do the mana for this deck?
I would want it to be 11-6.
Oh wow, I would go even heavier red than that.
12-5?
Yeah.
12-5s are awkward.
I would go 12-5.
And in that 5, you have a Badlands, which, wait, why are you playing Badlands? Oh, because you were playing Street
I was going to play Street for free.
So the Misty Rainforest only gets you... Well, you're still playing it because you have played a Geopede.
Yeah.
5 blue, and I'm only playing Remand, Psyblast, Condescend, Remand, Miscalc, 5.
Yeah.
You're playing 5 sources, and
Yeah.
one of those cycles for free? Yeah, I can get away with that.
Yeah.
12-5.
Yeah.
Can we even, since we're not playing anything expensive, can we go down to 16 land? Probably.
Oh, because the card stops at 4?
Yeah.
Yeah, you can.
This is the non-upheaval, non-mystical tutor, non-upheaval version.
Non-Sphinx of Uthun.
Yeah.
Yeah. I definitely think I want way more red. Like, my ideal land drops would be mountain, mountain, island on turn 3. Like,
yeah,
I want an island on, like, turn 3, not before.
Right. So I don't, like, Preordain, I don't, Miscalc's still fine. Because, again, it cycles. All right.
Yeah. So
again, thank you, Usman, for that kind of response, and hopefully we kind of did you justice there in looking at that.
what else do we have to talk about?
Kind of blaring through topics, although it has already been half an hour, so I guess maybe not. Other quick shout-out before we get to the Taste de Resistance. Jay Bush, who you may know from the A-Team, has been in contact with us. He is probably going to be our first not in studio, and by studio I mean next bedroom guest. Actually, I think we made the lighting better.
Okay.
So we need to work out the issues with getting Jay on, because we don't actually have audio coming out of this machine right now. So if we had somebody Skype in, we would not be able to hear
the stream
them.
could hear it, but we couldn't.
We wouldn't be able to hear them talking.
Yeah.
So soon we'll have Jay on, because Jay is a great example of somebody that only started cubing recently and has kind of taken the ball and run with it, and that's been really exciting. So having him on would be spectacular. So shout out to Jay, shout out to Usman. Thank you guys again for headphones. Headphones would help.
I mean,
Eck has one pair because he plays Path to Exile and stuff like that in his time.
I'll dig around and find some.
I don't want Eck's old headphones. That's gross.
So,
obviously, it's spoiler season. It's the most exciting time. We are probably a month away right now from a cube change, because we line up the cube changes with the set releases. That way, we try not to change things too much. Keep it in line. So if you scroll to the bottom on this guy, we're going to use mythicspoiler.com. Those guys are really great at... I'm a visual person, so they post stuff with images very... I'll go all the way. Wait. Oh, those are... Oh, you're not on the right spoiler page.
There we go.
Alright. So, we're going to start pretty much from square one on spoilers. Yes, yay, Dragon's Maze talk. It makes life so easy when all we have to do is talk about new cards. So, we'll start at the beginning. And then there was Render Silent.
Meh.
I agree with meh on Render Silent.
And mind you, the opinions henceforth are only related to Cube.
Right, we are not reviewing
I'm not making any commentary about how good this card will be in Standard or Legacy or
Vintage,
Block.
Limited, or any of those other
No,
things. We
this
are
is
here.
just-
We are here to talk Cube today.
Can these cards beat out the things that are already in Cube?
So thinking about Render Silent, the first time I saw it, I was like, well, we already cut Absorb, we already cut Undermine.
Who cares?
Void Slime is hanging on. We don't want to make Counterspell a harder thing to cast. And obviously the question that has come up on many of the Judge channels recently is, well, I can't cast it into an empty board. I can't just Render Silent with nothing on the stack to stop my opponent from casting spells. So, yeah, is this any good? And, yeah, you can't. It's similar to Absorb, where it's like, okay, well, gaining life could be similar to my opponent not casting a spell. I don't want to make Counterspell harder to cast. Not cutting the mustard.
Yeah.
Now, it's important to point out, with the more cards we've seen, Reddit has actually been very nice of kind of breaking down for us what the set is going to look like. And there are very few monocolored cards.
It's about 10 for each color.
Yeah, it's going to be, like, what is it, like 11 or 12 non-basic land, 30... How many monocolored cards?
50. 10
50.
of each color.
50 of each color on the monocolored cards. And a lot of gold, not so much on the hybrid. I think there was talk that there were no hybrid.
Potentially no hybrid.
But we do have all the split cards. And how we handle split cards in Cube is just like we would give it a multicolor spot. So, similar to Alar Reborn, although thankfully not as miserable as that set, we're really kind of concentrating on just one area of the cube when we're looking at spoilers for Dragon's Maze.
Yeah.
Which raises the bar a little bit in an unfortunate way, where we might not be making as many changes from this set because there isn't that much room to move around.
Right. It's like a card like Wear and Tear, for instance, moving up the list. Like, Wear and Tear is a fine card, but competition, it's not competing with 90 white cards or 90 red cards. It's competing with 6 white-red cards.
Yeah.
And it's just, the competition level is so high for those spots. It's so tight that it's really difficult to justify putting in a spell like that, even though that card is perfectly fine. Like, that's a good... I like that card. It's just, there's just not enough room for it.
So yeah, bad Orm's Thunder is kind of how I feel. Well, I mean, not really how I feel about Wear and Tear. Orm's
Thunder kills guys. That's super relevant.
Yeah, Orm's Thunder is a bit of a cheat because it goes in white only. Wear and Tear is a fine Magic card.
That's it. I do like this mechanic, the fuse. I think it's a cool way. It seems like the logical thing for split cards to have.
Rosewater talks a lot about how a lot of elements in Magic, a lot of keywords in Magic are just plays. Everything has kicker.
Yeah.
Everything has kicker one way
I remember
or
that
another.
article.
So yeah, fuse is just like, well, here's another form of kicker. Or entwine, whatever you want to call it.
Mm-hmm.
So it feels very natural to us. It feels like it's areas that we can navigate easily.
Why not count fuse cards as monocolor like you do with hybrid?
Well, if there was one effect on one side that was clearly strong enough to hold its own, I think that you could consider that.
Like if the other...
So far what I've seen, like, if you could evaluate a fuse split card and evaluate it in a way, I wouldn't click on that at all.
No, I'm not going to.
Oh, okay. If you could evaluate in a way where it's like, oh, I will definitely be playing that one side of that card very, very often, all the time almost, when I cast it, the other side is just a bonus, then it's something to consider. From the ones we've seen so far, I don't feel that way.
I mean, yeah, if it was like one side is ancestral and the other side is nothing, or something, like, okay, that's a blue card. But, I mean, none of the ones yet.
I mean, again, like right now, I think the only 2-color split card we include is Fire Ice.
Mm-hmm.
And Fire Ice is a perfect example of either side of that card is totally okay, but the effect of having access to both more often than not is really what makes it huge. And that's really what it boils down to on that one.
All right, so what do you think about Beck Call? A
Way
little more interesting of a split card.
Now, this is territory that's actually really nice, and conversations I've already had with people about evaluating 3-color spells in Cube, which is really a wide open area. When we get over to the gold section, it'll be easy to talk about. Best aggressive artifact creature. We probably talked about on the last show. Sorry. So, yeah, the 3-color section, it used to be very balanced. There used to be very strict, stringent rules about how we put cards in and evaluated them. And nowadays, I really feel like anything's fair game. If you want to include any 3-color card that's good enough, you really can. I mean, I try to represent all the 3-color combinations, but there have just been too many drafts where somebody's just laughing at Fungal Shamblers and Oros the Avengers, and I like Numont the Devastator personally, but that's probably because he destroys lands. So we've moved away from that, and we've moved towards a format where we just play the 3-color cards we like, and we want to try to represent as many as we can. And that allowed us to put in cards like Who, What, Where, When, Why, and Sliver Queen, which are a lot of fun. So a spell like Beck and Call already moves up in its chance of getting into the cube, because you could evaluate it like a 3-color card, but you could still be able to cast either side of it.
Sorry.
It's okay, Alan.
Responding to chat.
I'll wait for you.
Moving up from there, however, we get to some actually interesting cards.
Well, just to finish the thought, Beck Call, I don't think it's good enough. I think it's too slow.
Yeah. I think Beck is kind of cool, but I definitely think Constructed's going to see more play than in Cube.
Anytime that you can kind of mimic Glimpse of Nature, which we all know is a very broken card, is great. But then again, Glimpse of Nature isn't even in the cube as it stands right now. Although, even adding, I think, Gaia's Cradle in the future won't help it either. I do like Toil Trouble, actually. I think that the Toil side, we've talked about how we want to add more Ambition's Cost. We want to add more... The Black Mage can get that card advantage. I like that side of it. And obviously, if you can fuse this together, it can be a very strong effect, similar to what is it, like Cerebral Vortex or whatever. Only probably a lot better. So yeah, there's that. I still don't think it's worthy enough.
No.
And
it's closer.
Red-Black is so tight these days.
Alright.
So, the big Planeswalker, Ral Zarek. Also don't think so.
Yawn.
You're yawning? I'm not going as far as to yawn, but I just don't think it's good enough.
Well, when I look at Ral Zarek, because this is actually, when it got first spoiled, there was a lot of discussion about it's Snap throw it in the blue-red section because blue-red's so bad, and it's going to be awesome. And I just don't see it. He doesn't really defend himself like that.
Sure he does. He has Lightning Bolt.
The Lightning Bolt's fine, but I mean, he doesn't defend himself at a profit, which is what good Planeswalkers do.
God, you're nitpicking.
No, I'm not. Like, compare...
That's like saying Jace the Mind Sculptor doesn't defend himself.
Ral Zarek is just as shitty a Johnny Vengeance.
I think you just might have put it in a nutshell there.
Like, that card is just a shitty Johnny V. And a Johnny V is very good, don't get me wrong, but not being able to tap down an attacker, it's Lightning Bolt instead of Lightning Helix, like, it's just not as good. And honestly...
it has a very weird to unexcited... For competitive players, the ultimate is kind of like this needless crapshoot that...
Yeah, that will just randomly backfire on you for no reason.
It won't backfire. It's
it will just occasionally, like, not do what you need it to do.
Like, if your Ral Zarek said, stay in play for 3 turns, then Time Walk...
Sure.
That would be like, probably okay.
Yeah. But to be honest, like, I actually like pretty much where we're at with Blue-Red right now. I like most of the cards that are there.
I'd like to think that after the most recent update, and after having 2 sets that have had a lot of additions to the gold, I'm not, like, clamoring for cards like I was... a year ago at this time, where seeing this card would have been really exciting. We don't have Ethereum Horn Sculptor in the cube anymore. We're not desperately looking for things to take it out.
Yeah.
And Ral Zarek, you might have hit the nail on the head here with the Johnny Vengeance comparison. It's a little awkward where it's like, he has a very aggressive +1 side with, tap some of your opponent controls, untap your something, and then attack. Because he can't defend himself, and think of him kind of like Koth, where you're an aggressive planeswalker on the plus side. The minus side can be aggressive or defensive, but what are you really defending? The opportunity to slowly cast more lightning bolts later?
Yeah. So yeah, I mean, I think if this was even a year ago, he would be a snap include, but I think that where Blue-Red is right now, it's not for sure. I mean, he might make it in, but I'm not fully convinced that he has to go in. I don't think he's going to have to kind of earn his keep, so to speak. Speaking of blue-red cards,
we have Melik, the Izzet Paragon. This guy is also just too slow.
He gets bonus points for having possibly the sweetest creature type ever. He's a weird wizard. Like, that's pretty funny. But, 6 mana 2/4 with
a weird future
sight. Like, I just
not happening.
Very splashy. I mean, I'm sure EDH will love him.
Yeah. Over on the Azoria side, I don't know if this is going to be a much deeper mechanic, but we've kind of brought back the planar chaos feeling of the play a flash guy, return a guy you control to your hand kind of feeling, and I don't really think that's going to go anywhere either. I think we can just push by.
Sin Collector.
Also, don't think that's going to get the job done. This is a set of circumstances where I think I'd just rather have a Tidehollow Sculler.
Yeah, who's currently not in.
So you think about something like Tidehollow Sculler is, let's say they have a really good removal spell in their hand. Well, if they cast it on the Tidehollow Sculler, then it's effectively gone forever. As where, if you can take it,
It's just, this card just doesn't excite me enough to really...
Yeah, I'd rather have Tidehollow Sculler. That's kind of how I feel. And we don't currently play Tidehollow Sculler, so I'd bring that card back.
Pronounce the guilds. Whoop-de-doo. Not for us. Not going to go in cube.
Advent of the Worm, however. I think this is the first super exciting card I saw for cube.
This is the first one where I was excited, looking at the spoilers. That is quite the trick. That is some surprise blocker.
It's the everything. It's not only is it a trick, it's a great way for, like, is the coast clear against the Wrath decks? Boom, I got a 5/5 attacker. Do I want to cast this end of turn against the control decks and either have them counter it, untap, and play a threat? It's great there. I mean, yes, you have to be concerned about bounce, and I actually think we're bringing in a little more bounce in the next update.
That's true.
Even still, I think that almost balances it out a little bit better. I really think this card is going to have a home, and that's just after having a conversation about wanting to change green-white and having it be such a tight section.
Yeah, I mean, green-white is certainly, historically, one of the deeper sections. It just has a lot of redundancy. You know, if you want, especially sweet, mid-rangey size beaters, green-white has got, like, the infinite number of choices for you.
Now, again, looking at this card, I think the second thing I thought after, wow, what an instant, was reminding me of the old Odyssey block days where, you know, Roar of the Worm style plays were made a lot. And because of that, it feels pretty natural to me that at 4 mana, you should be able to get a big worm token, and that Magic has just kind of found ways to deal with it. You know, back in the day, it was a great way to combat the mutilate kind of decks, being able to cast a 6 toughness guy when your opponent usually has only 3 or 4 swamps in play. So, I love Advent of the Worm. I think it adds a different element to the green-white section, which I want to add. I don't know what's going to happen there. It's going to be really exciting to talk about. And from weeks to come, from here on out, we'll kind of have an update about the changes we propose, what we want to do with them, be even more of an open dialogue with the audience, and talk about the changes we want to make. But I definitely think Advent of the Worm was the first card I saw in Dragon's Face Spoilers where it clicked with me and I was like, bam, I want to play that card.
Vorel, not for us.
Not worth talking about. Master Cruelties, not worth talking about.
Bad.
I mean, not whatever.
Pretty bad.
It's everyone their own.
Gatekeepers
don't do anything for us.
Teysa, however, at least worth briefly touching on.
I think more than briefly. I think if you go back to our cube list, can we swap over to where the gold section is here? Black and white, this is what we're looking at for black and white. I mean,
it's certainly, I think the easiest with Teysa or Angel of Despair.
I still want Angel of Despair.
I mean, the problem I have with Teysa is that if you're, like, she doesn't actually save you unless you can already live through multiple combat steps. Like, if they just attack and kill you after you play it, like, she has not done anything. You know, she doesn't affect anything right away.
Why did I think she was a 5/5?
I don't know.
I thought she was a 5/5.
That'd be even better. But, like, yeah, if it's just, you know, it's sweet if you could play it when you're at 15 life or whatever, but it's pretty horrible at 5. And I'd much rather have Angel of Despair when I'm behind on life, which is much more likely to happen if I'm playing 7 drops.
Well, what I thought I was walking into, I thought this was a 5/5. I thought I was walking into a conversation where, what do I want to reanimate? Mm-hmm. And it was kind of like, if she was a 5/5 with pro creatures, she has a pretty quick clock. Seeing that she's really only a 4/4, I think I'd rather animate Dead and, you know,
I'd rather
Necromancy
just have
and all these things, Angel of Despair.
Like, the one outside of Teysa is that she's easier to cast.
Yeah,
but
you can splash one way or the other. But again, you're talking about 2 colors that already have good removal. You know, this isn't a blue-green card.
Yeah. I'm just
It's a little bit above but it doesn't make the cut. So, as much as Teysa is a talking point, I think actually our next card up here, what is this guy? Exava?
Exava Rectus Blood Witch.
Is much more of a talking point. This was very, very much the talk of the town on the Twitterverse earlier today. So we've already got...
Talk about a hot mana cost, by the way.
Yeah, we have a 3/3 first striking haster with Unleash for a red, a black, and 2 colorless. That's pretty good. She has Unleash, so she's going to come back. Or not, not Undying. She has Unleash, so she's a 4/4.
Yeah.
Obviously.
I mean, the problem I have with it, like, first of all, that last line about creatures with a +1/+1 counter having haste is pretty slim. Not a lot of that.
It's next to irrelevant. It's not irrelevant.
It's not irrelevant, but it's not super relevant either.
I mean, you've added like a tiny bit of value to your Gorehouse Chainwalker, your Rakdos Cackler, your Spike Feeder, maybe.
Okay.
How gross is it with Spike Feeder?
The problem I have with her is that the competition at that slot is just way too high. I mean, going back to our keep list, I mean, right now, This is going to change, obviously.
Yeah, there will not be Army Ants. Army Ants is actually probably going to become
so like
Olivia Voldaren.
Right now at the same cost, we have Falcon Wrath Aristocrats. And like Tristan just said, we're going and getting Olivia Voldaren as well. So for Exava to come in, that would be either the third 2 black-red casting cost in Cube, or it would have to be better than Falcon Wrath Aristocrat or Olivia Voldaren, and I'm not sure that's true. Obviously, she compares a lot to Aristocrat, much more so than Olivia, just because they function similarly, but I think I would rather have flying and the potential for indestructibility than First Strike and more toughness.
Yeah, the evasion is really what makes Falcon Wrath Aristocrat huge, and the machine gun effect is really what makes Olivia Voldaren huge. So it's hard to compare Exava to those exact same casting cost creatures.
Yeah.
So then you have to go back to the cube list and be like, okay, well, does that mean I want to cut a kill spell in the form of Bit Blast or Terminate, or do I want to cut something in a bit of, another angle where you have Sark the Mad? And for us, I guess the closest thing we could do is cut Bit Blast, but now we've got 3 cards at red, black, and 2, when we just don't have a lot of diversity in the forms of something like Bit Blast and Sark the Mad.
I mean, I'm not saying that Exava is bad at all. I just think that,
I don't even think it's, the next immediate entry on the red-black section. I think that there are a lot of other great cards that have been in the runnings. I think when we've talked about Rakdos in the past, the list is 15 cards long of things that we would very easily consider putting in.
Yeah.
I think Exava is probably going to be a close pass in the long run. We really won't know until we mock up the full change proposal, but it's not like a snap include. I mean, to me, it's not. I think Advent of the Worm is so far numero uno is the cards I really want to include.
So the other new ones.
Armed and Dangerous.
Armed and Dangerous.
So the red side, target creature gets +1/+1 and double striking on the turn.
As much as I like Anthrax, I don't think this card's making the cut.
Very nice. So that is a combat trick for limited. Very nice.
So Tristani's Summoner.
Boom! Excitement level through the roof.
This card is sweet. Not going to make it.
But we probably spent the 15 minutes before we started recording talking about all the things we want to do to this card.
It's not going to make the cut, but think of how sweet it would be if it did. Revelerking this. Oh my god. Recurring Nightmare, holy shit.
Even sneak attacking this card is hilarious.
Oh yeah. Especially if you have a budget constraint at all on your cube, this guy being uncommon is awesome. He is certainly impacting the board really heavily. Again, green-white being so deep, I don't think we're going to end up playing it, but it would be really fun if it was in. I think there are a number of cool interactions with it.
I want to real bad. I don't know how green-white's going to shake down. I really don't want to cut Gaddock Teague.
Also, how sweet is this thing with, Evolve? It's
oh, yeah.
That's a sweet,
actual limited implications.
Yeah.
Huh.
And then,
Lavinia of the 10th, which is the champion for the Zorias Guild, seems... This one seems just like a weird magic card. It's not going to make it into cube under any sort of circumstances, but we're looking at a 4/4 pro red for 5 that
which is okay.
Detains each of your opponent's on-lands permanents with converted mana cost 4 or less when enters the battlefield. Yeah, I guess it's kind of a combo with Venser the Sojourner.
I mean, the mild, quasi-time walk effect that you get out of this, it's kind of like Blinding Angel in a way.
I think it's probably better than Blinding Angel because you get it for sure. It's not like Blinding Angel's awkward where you cast a 2/4.
No, I understand that, but I'm saying
cross your fingers.
It's like the quasi time walk kind of effect, of you might stop them from doing everything or it might do nothing. You know what I mean? Your opponent you might play this and your opponent just shrugs it off or doesn't really care. If they just have big guys or they have spells they want to cast, rather than go into combat or cheap artifacts and stuff like that.
That's kind of always been the problem with Detain in regards to putting it in a cube or not. It's just not a clear gonna do something. And again, blue-white is rarely the color combination where it's this guy comes down, he effectively is a falter effect, and then you just swing in for the win or something.
Yeah.
It's just kind of this weird... with most of these cards, if they had been costed lower and sized down, their effects would be much stronger and more impactful on games.
Yeah, that's like to talk about that Rurik Thar, the 6/6.
Oh yeah,
it's like a similar thing.
It's across the board. I mean, Rurik Thar, Teysa, Lavinia, even Ixava. If they had just kind of shrunk them a little bit, they would be much more in the running. And I think that they feel like they're kind of more like bloated EDH cards.
Well, I feel like they want them. They're all legends. They want them to be splashy.
So,
legends
legends can be small people.
I
doesn't mean their effects
that.
can't be very impactful.
Like Vorel is only at 3, the blue-green guy. But I mean, like for the most part, they want them to be like big.
Can you go up to the top, and then sort by. Oh, you did sort by date spoiled. Huh. All right.
Anyway, it's just a lot of like really bomby kind of splashy effects, and problem is a lot of them are just too slow for Cube.
Yeah. Again, if Teysa was a 5/5, I think there'd be more of a talking point there. But what she's butting up against, it just doesn't work. And so I think the most exciting cards to talk about for Cube right now are Trissani's Summoner and Advent of the Worm. I think those are the two cards that are the most exciting. I think there is still a lot of space for us to work with in the gold section. Hopefully there's a lot of cool stuff that's 3-color or more, because that's really where I want to make changes. I think after the release of Dragon's Maze and Return to Ravnica, you think we are a big miss on Ralzeric? Like, we missed it? Like, that card's good?
I have my doubts.
It's alright.
I'm certainly willing to give it... I just did comment on the chat, sir.
Oh, well, give the guy a break.
I'm sorry. It's just that. Anyway, yeah, I mean, Ralzeric is the least clear in terms of whether or not it'll actually be good, I think. It could be good.
What's Ralzeric? Oh, he's the Planeswalker, right.
Right. He could be good. Probably isn't good. I don't know.
I mean, if we go to the red-blue section in our cube, I guess we could cut Hypersonic Dragon for him.
Yeah. Or, like, Prophetic Bolt.
I love Prophetic Bolt. Get out of town.
I do, too. I mean...
He's just not a clear home run. I think that's what I'm feeling. I feel like Advent of the Worm, and I feel like Trissani's, was it Summoner?
Yeah.
I think those cards are home runs.
I think that especially if you either are playing newer cards, Pauper, you have budget constraints, Trissani's Summoner is going to be awesome.
You do get to go from kind of 4 to 6 with Ralzeric.
Yeah.
To be aggressive. I mean, it is kind of a wildfire enabler.
Sure.
You look skeptical.
I just kind of... I don't know. I just don't like Planeswalkers that... I don't know.
Talking about expanding the gold card section, we actually just recently expanded the gold card section from 60 to 70 cards. I remember during the Alara block, something similar happened where we expanded the gold card section similarly. And I think that a couple of years down the line after Alara, we kind of retracted it and brought it smaller. And only over the winter had we gone from 670 to 700 cards in the cube. And it's funny.
Expanding the guilds adds up quick size-wise, also. Because even if you want to just notch them up 1, you're adding 10 more cards.
Yeah, I know.
Like, it adds up very quickly.
And it's really about a question, and this leads into the conversation about gold, which is was going to be the initial topic for this week. You have to make a choice, and I think that there has to be balance across all the colors. And what has been the problem with gold cards in the past long history of Cube is that there haven't been a deep roster for all the 2 color combinations, and slowly but surely we've been inching towards it. And then beyond that, you have to make choices that are best for what you want those color combinations to do, which ties into our previous talks about trying to draft, I guess, the guilds, or just the kind of the basic color combinations. And at the same time, you're battling with you're battling with what are the most powerful cards. And again, our cube, more often and more frequently than a lot of other cubes, is you want power. So it's about finding that perfect balance between, well, I really want this 2-color combination to do this and have access to this, but I really want to make sure I play the best cards. How do we make it work?
I think expanding gold is certainly going to happen. I would say if there was any section to expand, it would be gold.
Well, it's because every other section of the cube has 90 cards in it.
Right. So we have 90 for everything, and then 70 for this. So I think that
Yeah, it should say 3+ colors.
Yeah.
Silver Queen is under the 3 or more.
The 3 or more, yeah.
Yeah. So originally...
Who, What, When, Where, Why is also in there.
I mean, not originally. For many years, it was just 3-color cards. And we only kind of broke that. You know, I know like some cubes will be like, oh, I have a 601 card cube, and the 1 is Progenitus.
Yeah. How often are pre-combat main phase spells relevant? Relevant to what?
Yeah.
22. I didn't get the context of that.
The link to the preview cards, I actually really like. Nowadays, I really like using mythicspoiler.com. Again, I'm a visual person.
I think he's talking about.
Oh, you're talking about the hover-overs?
It's a Google add-on. It's a Chrome add-on. It's called AutoCard Anywhere.
It's very popular in the Reddit community.
Yeah, it's very useful. Although it is funny when like you're reading an email, and someone will say like, blah 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 terminate, and like terminate will show up or something, or you know whatever.
Or here in terminate, it's not showing up.
Right, I know. But like stuff like that, like random magic cards will have Holy Day or something. So anyway, we're talking about gold, and I think that one of the things about gold that's the hardest to really work with is that some colors combinations are really deep in the sense that they have 10, 15, or even more cards, whereas some are you're barely scraping by at 6.
Nowadays, not as much as days past. I definitely think in the last couple of years we've made strides toward having a deeper roster on kind of an even power level for everybody, and that's worked out really well. I do think that I feel like we've topped out at 6 of where the best is, and I definitely think you could see kind of where some colors drop off. And we've had this conversation on and off in the past about certain color combinations. I think like Rakdos and Selesnya are guilds where you could go real deep, where guilds like Izzet and Azorius are much more shallow. Maybe, I mean, for a long time it was funny. I think that Golgari was like the redheaded stepchild of gold cards, and just didn't have that much going on for it. But nowadays I'd be perfectly happy to add Grizzly Salvage and some other cards to green-black. But I'm not super amped to add a ton more gold cards. So, last week we talked about artifacts. We talked about how open-ended artifacts are in the cube, and you could just pretty much do whatever you want. I mean, everything is I feel there are the fewest guidelines in that section to try to make your cube draftable. I think that multicolor cards is probably the next closest ancestor to that, in where
the do whatever you want.
Yes, now
lives on.
In the lead up, I feel like we mentioned that you want the cards you put in there to interact with the strategies that you want. For example, we could talk about Rakdos and Red Black again. Where Red and Black is positioned in the cube right now, there's a lot of overlap in land destruction, and part of me really wants an Army Ants, Wrecking Ball representation in those cards, so that people can kind of draft the gold cards and have a better idea of where you might want to head. Like we're not pigeonholing you into one draft strategy, but we're kind of like gently nudging, being like, oh, hey, these things work with this kind of strategy. And so with gold, you have to find that balance. You have to find the balance between playing this purely on power level. These are the best 5 or 6 cards for this color combination, and additionally, what you want that will lend to the strategies that work for your guilds.
Yeah, and I think that, there's also just a lot of, even within that necessarily, like if you're trying to angle a strategy in a color combination, there's a lot of variation there. Army Ants versus Wrecking Ball, for instance. Or, in, blue-white, kind of we have 2 generalized strategies that happen in blue-white. There's the control deck, and then there's kind of like the tempo-y, revelarchy kind of deck.
I still think there's an aggressive deck. I think there are 3 distinct varieties in Azorius.
Sure, but I'm saying, you need to find cards that fit ideally in multiple spots as much as possible, just because you're working with, even if you're playing, 80, 90 multicolor cards, you have 8 or 9 spots, even 10 spots. That's still a much smaller section than any of your colors are going to be. So just by the nature of it, you're going to have cards that have better, either really, really strong functionality in a narrow sense, or are very broadly applicable.
Completely agree.
Like, they just have to be much bigger. It's much easier to get away with being a mediocre single color card than it is to be a mediocre. If you're a mediocre multicolor card, you have a target on your back pretty huge.
If by target on your back, I think from my experience, what you'll find is, one thing you'll learn about, if you're a cube owner and a cube builder, one thing you'll learn about card evaluations is you're the guy that kind of has to keep track of what the 15th picks are, keep track of what people aren't taking, and then kind of assess the why. And multicolored cards are already at a disadvantage, and unless you have an overabundance of fixing in your cube, they're the most likely to get left behind by the most drafters, even if their power level is higher. Something like Planeswalkers might be a bit of an outlier there, where people are still going to take them being like, oh, it's a Planeswalker, it has to be good.
I think the standards, on a bit of a tangent to that, the standards for gold cards went up a lot when we cut signets.
I don't think the standards were higher
because they're just because like.
Are you saying from a drafter's perspective?
Yeah, because like we cut signets, so it's
we cut a lot of free fixing.
Right, it's harder to splash.
Maybe when you're in a draft, I don't think you're often as critical of that. If anything, I think that we've done a pretty good job of helping the fixing in the cube, and again in the upcoming update, I think we'll even go a step further to help the fixing in the cube. But even still, people are very critical of the gold cards.
Yeah. Doesn't having a billion gold cards encourage retarded 3-color decks, 3+ color decks that feel like remnants from the Haymaker days of the cube? That's certainly a possibility.
Those players generally aren't winning a lot, though. Like, they get weeded out by the true control decks, the true aggressive decks.
Those decks are very fun to both draft and play, I feel. But you do...
When you're getting your shit pushed in all the time,
you don't always... I mean, the good ones don't always get their shit pushed in, but they do get smashed by, like, the mono-red aggressive deck pretty regularly. And I feel like that's a fine balance. Like, you can have, like, if you want to play, like, 4-color crazy every awesome bomb spell, like, go ahead. Like, if you that's what you find fun, but, like, Goblin Guide's just going to kill you by itself a lot of times.
Yeah, I think that you can go broader than just mono-red. I think the aggressive archetypes will generally beat out the 4-color, I have all of the sweet cards decks. Like,
yes.
For every deck that's playing Angel of Despair and Electrolyze, trying to cast Electrolyze early to eat off threats, and Angel of Despair to eat their big stuff later, like, they're going to lose games to the well-tuned decks as well as to themselves, just like in all of Magic through the history of time anyway.
But I feel like, I don't feel like it's a problem. Like, I don't think those kind of decks are prevalent enough. I mean, maybe we see one person draft them per week, if that.
I think that the way this question is asked, the thing you have to be aware of is, like, let's say we had 100 multicolor cards, and we only had 60 cards of each color, each monocolor. Does that mean they're going to be more 3-color decks? Probably. That's because there's a higher percentage of multicolor cards in your cube. And as a cube builder and someone that edits your cube regularly, it's at your discretion to kind of have those control constraints. And you'll notice in my cube, now, multicolor is the smallest represented of all of the colors, where it used to be much more even. I think it used to be like 70 monocolor, like 50 artifact multicolor, 60 lands or something. It was still like in the lowest, but now it's like, across the board there's even more lands and multicolors at the bottom. And that's because I don't, I still like the ability to draft a monocolor deck. I think that in my cube you could draft mono any of the 5 colors and you could draft a good competitive, potentially draft-winning deck. And I think there are a lot of cubes out there where you just don't have that anymore because you want the fun of being able to draft all the fun cards in all the colors. And
I think that's also a function of our artifact section being relatively large and relatively powerful, being able to augment monocolor decks. Like, 17 blue spells and some artifacts or whatever.
Effects like Nevinyrral's Disc play a lot into that.
Yeah.
You want to make sure. I mean, we don't play Ostomes. I think it's too slow. But yeah, you want to give reach to mono black and mono blue and things like that. But coming back to multicolor cards, some of them are really deep. Some of them are not as deep. So blue-white, it ends up that most of the really good cards are control cards. You see that in Detention Sphere and Grand Arbiter and Supreme Verdict and a little bit with Venser. And then we kind of have, I feel like, a bit of an outlier in Overrule, which could become Sphinx's Revelation. I think that's a legitimate debate between those cards. And then you have like one kind of aggressive card like Isosane Draft, and I think that you could, since Azorius has 3 draft archetypes, you would want something along the lines of Azorius Guildmage, although since it's a hybrid mana card, we can kind of fit that somewhere else. But that is something to be considered for when thinking about one form of multicolor like blue-white.
Yeah.
I kind of have a thing against Sphinx's Revelation, just because I feel like since you can't target a player with it, it's also very slow. It feels like a win more card in Cube. Like, in Standard right now, you see it played a lot, and I think that's because there are a lot of games that get to parity, draw out, you're playing 60-card decks, you can afford to
draw 10.
Draw 7 or whatever, and in Cube, since you're playing in a much smaller sandbox, it doesn't really work the same way. And I think Overrule kind of surprises people a lot. And it's one of those counter spells where late in the game, like, power sinking somebody for 8 doesn't mean anything, but overruling somebody for 7 does mean something.
I mean, Revelation certainly seems fine. I'm just curious about whether or not it's too slow.
Yeah, that's my feeling.
Like, you can overroll for 1 and 1 or 2, and that's fine, but Sphinx's Revelation for, like, 1 is not very good.
It happens. 4 mana, draw 1. Gain 1.
Moving on from blue-white to blue-black.
Blue-black is one of the more shallow color combinations, but we make what feels like color concessions because it's very much the control color combination. So cards like Psychotog and Shadow Mage Infiltrator are in that gold card section.
I really like Shadow Mage. I've always enjoyed Shadow Mage Infiltrator. I always seem to find a way to work him into decks that I draft, and I'm always pretty happy with him.
Yeah, I mean, I think he's the weakest of the cards that are on this list, and it's almost more of a nostalgia thing at this point. The Great Psychotog debate? You want to have the Great Psychotog debate?
I mean, it certainly...
Should Psychotog be in Cube? That's really the debate.
I like Psychotog in a... This is a classic Magic card, you know, of times gone by, but is it really that great?
I still think it's really good. Just playing that guy against the Red Mage really messes with them. Now, like, the cards in your hand and graveyard become a life-gaining resource, even if you're playing blue-black, to combat the aggressive strategies of red while you're eating their creatures, just like Psychotog did when it was in Standard. You know, maybe I have too much of a nostalgia bug for Psychotog, but the fact that I still routinely see it being good in drafts, you know, maybe that's a product of our cube being a little bit more of a control cube, but I really still like that card.
Yeah, I mean, it's okay. I don't know. I think that it's not going to take much to push Psychotog out. Let's just say that. Like,
see, I think the next card that gets cut from this section is Shadow Mage Infiltrator.
Oh, Shadow Mage is way better than Psychotog. It draws cards.
Sure.
Other blue-black cards. Baleful Strix is awesome. I highly recommend if anyone has a cube and does not have a Baleful Strix in it.
Tinkering that guy away feels so good.
That guy is just...
Getting him back with Revel Arc feels real good.
Like, oh my god, it's really good. I really, really like Duskbalance here. We talked about this in one of our earliest episodes. It's a little funky in blue-black, specifically because it's a hard color to be aggressive, color combination to be aggressive with, but Duskbalance here has been... Every time I see that guy, he's doing something awesome. I really like him. He's just a sweet beater.
Agree.
Recoil, Soul Manipulation, both
just
okay.
Running past Recoil? I love Recoil.
I mean,
blue-black straight up kill stuff when their opponent has no cards in hand, or the very rare and hard to find bounce.
Yeah.
I mean, like, hitting a Planeswalker that's been sitting around slowly gaining loyalty with that card is so gross.
Yeah. I mean, Recoilless bounce is good just because we have kind of a dearth of bounce in the cube right now.
Soul Manipulation is also one of those cards that it's in the top few that we would consider cutting. It's just such a great 2-for-1 element, and Instant Speed Raise Dead can be a surprise, really great effect that you can kind of backdoor into in Cube that you don't see a lot of. It's kind of like, you know, why would you play Giant Growth in Cube? It's like, well, you don't expect it. It's, you know, it's not as much of a corner case as you might think, and Soul Manipulation does a lot of things just like that.
Black-Red.
We've talked a lot about Black-Red. I think that the list of cards that go into Black-Red is 1,000,000 cards deep.
Yeah.
Again, in a soon update, we're probably going to be moving a little bit away from more the land destruction side, as much as the Army Ants package has been fun to play with. I think we want a little more diversity, which is funny to say as we're looking at like 2 straight kill spells, 3 straight kill spells currently.
Yeah.
Bit Blast, Dreadbore, Terminate, and then a weird Planeswalker that's a bit of an outlier Planeswalker.
Yeah.
And the thing about, you know, the gold card section is I feel less awkward about auto-including Planeswalkers in the gold section than I do in the monocolor section. You know, and this will be a conversation for another day, but talking about planeswalkers in your cube, you got to be careful, because I think as Magic grows older with planeswalkers, it's hard not to just kind of jam your cube full of planeswalkers. Does that make sense?
It's very, like, we're very quickly approaching the day where you could have a deck with, like, eight planeswalkers in it, and, like, it wouldn't even necessarily be that big of a stretch.
And all of a sudden, like, you've created this weird sub-form of Magic where you're just playing, like, planeswalker back and forth. So I think keeping control of that, you know, like how planeswalkers kind of play out in Standard, for example, where a very small number of them were printed in a year, you know, they can be really strong, and how they interact is really important. And we're not at that kind of like critical mass in Cube yet, but we are getting close. And multicolor is a bit of a sanctuary for it, I feel like. You know, if you're going to go out of your way to play multiple colors or play a planeswalker, right now in Cube, I'm more and more liberal. I'm going to let you have it. You know, maybe that's more of a Ral Zarek argument.
Why are we not running Rakdos Return? The chat would like to know.
It feels slow.
Yeah.
It feels slow.
I mean,
who knows? Maybe we'll see Rakdos' Return, Sphinx's Revelation team up coming to a cube near you soon.
I mean, the damage is relevant. I was about to make a Mind Shatter comparison.
Yeah, Mind Shatter is a good comparison.
We used to play Mind Shatter, but yeah, that got cut because it was too slow. I mean, it might make a comeback just because it's something a little different. You know, if you wanted the variety in Black-Red as opposed to a lot of redundancy.
If we end up adding another 1 or 2 4-drop creatures of the red-black section, we may need to kind of reevaluate where that color combination is shallow and where we might need to give it more depth. Rakdos' Return could be one of those ways to give it depth.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm not saying, you know, like, the thing about the Rakdos section is it's so deep, and I don't want to say, like, oh, you know, Blightning will never have a chance to be in Cube. It's just not in the top 6 cards in that color combination. Throw them away, boys. Again, I think it kind of boils down to how things kind of pan out for those color combinations, and I think when you're looking at the multicolor card section of your Cube, that's the hard things that are evaluated. Because, again, you kind of have to think of those draft strategies. And, you know, Blightning is a card where, you know, losing more of the expensive effects, losing the LD effects out of those 2 color combinations, all of a sudden Blightning, you know, rises in value because we don't have a lot of the 3-drop non-creatures.
It leapfrogs a lot of stuff when you're not necessarily fighting for it with LD, and it's working better in, like, LD plus the discard is kind of an awkward thing to have a lot of, to have both.
And I think what we found. You have Hellkite Overlord. We're getting a little ahead of ourselves, but I guess talking on red-black, Hellkite Overlord is a house.
He is.
I love that card.
He is a sweet one to reanimate. He is a sweet one to oath.
Eck has been talking recently about trying to cut Damia Sage of Stone for Broodmage Dragon. Because
this card is so bad.
I guess we're just jumping around. Who cares?
Who cares?
Law, order, throw it out the window.
Dogs and cats living together.
The more I play with Broodmage and MTGO, the more I like it. Probably because the MTGO cube is less powerful. But let's have the Damia conversation.
Sure.
I pose to you, look at the 3-color cards that we currently run in Cube.
Yeah.
Find one that's more diverse and or better than Damia. We will talk about it. I think that do you remember that email I sent you a while ago? With that list of 3-color cards?
Vaguely. I don't know exactly.
You can look in your archives and see if you have it, because I think that's a good talking list.
I mean, the thing I don't like about Damia is that it sucks a lot.
You've made the most compelling of arguments.
It's a 7-mana 4/4, and it's 3 colors. Like, holy shit.
Natural Order for it. You can Green Sun Zenith for it.
Who the hell has ever done that?
I've done at least one of those.
Like, I just cannot even...
Can you just, like, search your mail for, like, multicolor or something?
I'll find it, don't worry.
Okay.
You keep talking.
So that's that's the conversation we had. We'll look that up. But to get back to the 2-color combinations, because we'll get to 3 colors. We'll talk about 3 colors. Red-green is still one of those really shallow ones. In our cube, something like Vithian Renegades is really strong. That's like a perfect card to have. Bloodbraid Elf is an obvious one. Rampager has been excellent. I really love that card. Stormbind has been a great kind of combination with things. I think the outlier there would be like Burning Tree Shaman, and we've come up with some proposals of things we could put into that spot. Red green is still one of those color combinations. Oh, there it is. Yeah, you found it.
Told you.
Yeah, look at that.
Sorry. So what were we talking about?
I was talking about red green as a color combination, and where is its strengths, where is its weaknesses, what may we want to change.
I mean, the thing about red green is that a lot of the good cards in red green, specifically the good red green cards, don't necessarily work exceptionally well in what red's trying to do, but work very well in what green's trying to do. Because green typically angles more towards the mid-rangey color, whereas a lot of the mono red, the really aggressive mono red decks might not even want Huntmaster of the Fells. It doesn't have haste. It's not necessarily fast or good enough. They'll want Bloodbraid Elf, sure.
What's a Rumble Belt Raider?
Rumble Belt Raider, it's the new guy. He's hybrid. It's one of the attacks they get counters.
Oh yeah. Well, since it is a hybrid card,
so this would be
it would be either a red card or a green card.
Yeah.
Similar. So it's like Fangren Firstborn.
Yeah.
It's the exact same thing, only it's a 3/3 instead of a 4/2, and you can hybridize it.
It gets bigger for each.
Only it gets bigger.
It's reverse.
What are you talking about? Fangren Firstborn put a +1/+1 counter on each attacking creature you control when it attacked.
Right, and when this attacks, it gets bigger for each attacking creature you control.
Put a +1/+1 counter on it. So it's like on an eggs one basket scenario.
Yes, it's a reverse. See what I'm saying?
What did Sam say? There was a game where I played him. Someone had it.
Unimportant spells counter by the damage player, so he could deck him with him to Torak. Yeah. I mean, so
I think that was Zach. I think that Zach got into a set of circumstances where his Damia was keeping him from dying because he was going to deck himself.
It's just Zach versus Sean.
Yeah, there we go. Yeah. It was in my cube. Yeah, I remember that.
I don't know. That guy just...
I love Damia. We're getting off topic again. You don't run Dami Raid because you have fewer creatures. That's part of it. We don't run Dami Raid as well because it's just not a... I just really hate that feeling of look at a land, put a land back.
It's also so hard. It's so much harder in Cube to get the critical mass of creatures, even if you want to be aggressive. Green has more creatures than spells, and every other color is even except for blue. But even that being said...
No, green's the reverse of blue.
Right, that's what green has more creatures than spells. Everything else is even except for blue.
The fight mechanic on Dami Raid is really relevant, but that's really what I would be putting it in for. I'd be putting it in for a 3-mana fight Planeswalker.
And, what's the highest number of creatures you've ever had in a cube deck? 17?
I've gotten to 19.
I don't know if I've ever gotten higher.
I've probably gotten to 19 in a Spectral Procession.
I don't know if I've ever gotten that high in a deck with all cards that I liked. You know what I mean?
Whatever.
The 18th and 19th creatures are usually pretty bad.
3-mana Planeswalkers are still really good. I'm not going to say Dami Raid will never make an appearance in Cube. I just think we would have to slant to put more creatures in the Cube before we would go back and consider Dami Raid. Good?
Yeah.
Coming over to green-white, 16 to 17 creatures is perfectly fine. Green-white is another one of those color combinations is as deep as the Rakdos color combination, and we've had a lot of talks. I think just recently on Twitter, we took these 6 cards and added in Sigarda and asked people what they would cut if they were to cut one. Eventually, we landed on Phantom Nishoba, although it was not unanimous. I do think that Phantom Nishoba and Mirari's Wake were the 2 cards that anyone really wanted to cut, although there was a small camp out there that really dislikes Gaddock Teeg.
I really love Gaddock Teeg. I feel like if anything's a lock, it's him.
I don't know if I feel it's a lock, but I do really like that card as well. It was funny, though, in all of the responses that we got over cross-platform, I think Qasali Pridemage was the only creature or only card of those cards that no one nominated. I think that there were people who were like, oh, Knight's too slow, it doesn't do enough anymore. Loxodon Smiter is so narrow. Gaddock Teeg is so bad, he's just a 2/2. But no one came after Qasali Pridemage. It was really the only thing I learned.
Yeah, Qasali Pridemage is super good. I just really like Gaddock Teeg. That effect is very unique and constantly relevant. He's still just a little beater.
I feel like I have to defend the Teeg all the time, but I really want to defend Teeg, and maybe it's more of an R-Cube thing. You just haven't played with R-Cube enough, but that guy does a lot of work. I think Knight does a lot of work. I think he wins a lot of games that people just don't think he's going to win, and I think he does a lot of stuff that people don't expect him to do, and I think he's only going to get better as we put in the Mirage fetch lands in an upcoming update. So I love him. I love Smiter because the blue deck's really good, and the black discard's really good, and the black discard's only going to get better. I mean, I love all of these cards. They're just like my babies. But I definitely see cutting Phantom Shoba for Sigarda in the future, and I could also consider putting in the new Advent of the Worm card for maybe Mirari's Wake is a bit of a different take, but I'm not sold on any of these things yet. But again, green-white is really, really deep, and there are a ton of cards that aren't in there right now that I feel you can play with.
Yeah, and green-white is, interestingly right now, one of the most heavily redundant sections because it's all creatures. Like, it's some 2-drops, it's some 3-drops, like, it doesn't have the variety of some of the other sections, but it's also... all of its guys are so sweet or so efficient that, you know...
Yeah, no, they're really, really good. I mean, I love them.
Alright, white-black?
White-black got effing huge. Let's not get it. We'll talk about Charlotte's Agent when we get there.
Obsidian.
Yeah, again, black-white went from kind of mediocre up until Gatecrash to getting a couple great cards out of Gatecrash. And I think that all the cards that are in black-white right now highlight the Orzhov guild as far as cube drafting goes. Now, again, this is a good point of reference to go back, listen to and/or watch our previous episode about the enemy color guilds in drafting and what you want to do when you're drafting Orzhov. So cards like Orzhov Charm and Mortify are really great there. Obviously, cards like Angel Despair or Vindicate are really great. That you get both ends of the spectrum there, and Sorin's a slam dunk as well.
Sorin's also very good. Let's talk about Orzhov Charm, because I feel like that's not a very common include.
Yeah, this is, when we saw the Gatecrash spoiler, I talked a lot with people, it's like, hey, is Rescue plus Devour in Shadow a strong enough card by itself? Because the third ability doesn't come into play that often. And what we kind of ended up on was, those effects jammed together in a color combination that doesn't always have access to them is really great. Sure, in White's removal suite, you've got Swords, Path, O-Ring, but you can't deal with black creatures as often. So Orzhov Charm deals with that a lot. And also, looking for value, saving your own guys, especially if they have ETB effects, is really great. Sam would like us to play Cartel Aristocrat, which I'm not, never say never, as I say.
Yeah, if Sam Black says anything...
Second Creatures is good.
Yeah.
And with future updates where we're going to try to incorporate more of the Graveyard Matters with Black portion, maybe that guy would be better. I do, yes. Thank you for admitting you're joking with us, Sam. But sacrifice effects are going to be more key. Why? Why Aristocrat? Well, I think you got your answer. So, moving on from Black-White, Red-White was probably the #1 section that got an upgrade from the most recent set release. We were still rocking the Captain's Maneuver up until...
going from Captain's Maneuver to Aurelia's Fury might be the biggest immediate turnaround you could ask for.
But it's funny because Aurelia's Fury has yet to really break out in Cube.
I really like it. I've had it a couple times.
What did you do with it?
I made a play for the win with it.
Did you cast Fireball?
No. I tapped a blocker and silenced my opponent.
Oh, okay.
So that he could not cast a kill spell on my Gisela Blade of Gold Knight.
There's a house.
Yeah. Also relevant, that guy's...
Gisela. I think she's my favorite big-butted angel these days. This card is just so backbreaking.
She's just like a 10-10 for 7. Or,
that's like shields up, too, when she lands. The problem with, tapping out for a big fatty like this is you're very susceptible to the crackback. I mean, when we talked about Teysa earlier in the show, we're like, oh yeah, sure, that's a great ability, but you cast it, and then your opponent untaps, swings with all their guys or whatever, and kills you, it's game over. And Gisela has this built-in,
Gisela immediately affects the board in a very relevant way, and is sweet. Not to mention the fact that she'll kill you in, one swing.
Oh, yeah. Remember that game where I cast it, and I activated my Gideon Champion of Justice with, 9 counters on it, and then I just punched you in the dick?
Mm-hmm. I think that was the same game where you also stopped taking damage from Mana Vault.
Oh yeah, because I Mana Vaulted out my Gideon Champion of Justice, so my Gisela turned off the damage I was taking from that too. That was cute.
Yeah, that was cute. Lightning Helix, obviously very good.
a lot of these feel like auto includes. You know, a Johnny Vengeance, Boros Charm, Lightning Helix. Those are cards going to be in there for sure. Firemane Avenger. I think we've defended this card in earlier episodes. I still really like this card. Phantom Monster gets the job done sometimes. It's a bit of a different angle. It's a mid-range card for Boros. Again, in that episode where we talk about the enemy guilds, there's a lot of different ways you can go about Boros. Firemane Avenger fits in really well in those strategies. Coming back to Gisela, our friends over at the Third Power, if you haven't listened to that show, you can find it on MTG Cast. It's actually stars Usman and Anthony Altavo. I don't want to say his name wrong. Those guys have been nice enough to have me on their show a couple of times. One of these days we'll do some more cross with them. But they had a long debate about Gisela versus Aurelia. And I feel like Anthony had to go a long way in kind of convincing Usman that Gisela was where you wanted to be. And I think
it's just such a house. Holy Jesus. The thing just does so much.
Yeah, I agreed with pretty much all of Anthony's points, and from our list, you can kind of see which one we prefer.
Also, a sweet combo with Aurelia's Fury.
Sure,
just double it up.
You're splitting hairs here. Figure, since it's hybrid, it's no longer in the red-white section. I think we ended up dropping it into white. Might have dropped it. Either way, I mean, it's in the cube. It's just now that it's multicolor.
Nope, it's in red. Ding.
Can I get a figure? Yeah, I feel like that opened up a lot of space for us. And we talked about that. I don't remember which episode we talked about that.
There's a couple episodes.
Talked about that.
Blue-red.
Blue-red. You've got your classic Prophetic Bolt, Fire Ice, Electrolyze, Is It Charm, Shock 'em packages.
I really like Niv Mizzet. This Niv Mizzet specifically. This is another one of those cards where untapping with it feels like it's very hard to lose.
Yes, but that feels like that's the case with a lot of 6-mana dragons.
Not all of them, though. I mean, he's pretty sweet. Like, I've seen a number of games where he just really takes over for people in a way that not a lot of other cards will, like being able to machine gun, draw a bunch of cards,
I look at this card a lot like how I looked at Kamano, only a more narrow archetype, but having a much more sweeping power level. Yeah, I mean, well, come on. Kamano was 5 mana and only red. This card is 6 mana of double colors and has a double color activation.
Yeah. Hypersonic Dragon is the other card that's not a...
It's like a mini Rorix in my mind. I think that's really where this card shines. It's kind of the out-of-nowhere hit you. I think the sorcery speed thing is a bit of a bonus, but it plays in a lot more than I thought it would when we first put it in there. Maybe one of these cards become Ral Zarek. We'll see in future episodes where we talk about the changes that we will propose.
And I mean, also, who knows? Maybe there's some other sweet blue-red card that we haven't seen yet that trumps one of these. You don't know.
Well, we've already seen their guild leader. We've already seen...
You don't know?
All right. Red-blue, for the record, not that deep of a color combination. It's definitely one of the ones that the well dries up pretty quickly. I know that people will go to something like Galectrode to kind of help them out.
For a long time, we did play the Looter Dragon.
Yes, we did. We did play... What was that guy's name again? I'm not going to get hung up on it. The 3/5 for a red, a blue, and 3... And you'd, attack with it, and if you're the opponent, you're like, no, Blightsteel Colossus, no, Equal Leviathan.
Yeah.
And then sometimes
that guy was fine.
You get hit for, a million D.
Yeah.
Spellbound Dragon.
Spellbound Dragon. That was it. Spellbound Dragon. He was okay. We switched him for Hypersonic, and the haste seems to be relevant.
The haste is really what's key with the Hypersonic Dragon. The thing about something like Spellbound Dragon is you're the red-blue mage. You have to find a time where you want to, lay a 3/5 flyer and just kind of pass. And that's not the easiest.
Blue-green.
Blue-green is all about sweet creature tricks.
Edric is so good.
Edric is excellent. Mystic Snake's excellent.
Simic Charm has been a surprisingly strong one.
I think in previous episodes, certain people in this room thought it was the best charm ever or something.
Who was that?
I don't remember. I remember somebody was going on about how Simic Charm was the best charm, and I was a little surprised.
Yeah, Simic Charm's been really good. Simic Sky Swallower is... Honestly, if there was a card to cut out of these, I would say that on the chopping block, if you were to kind of order the power level, at the bottom would be Void Slime and Simic Sky Swallower. Void Slime just because, very. It's nice that you get the stifle.
It is the only stifle in the cube, and since it's the only stifle in the cube, that makes it better. Because no one expects it.
No one expects the Spanish Inquisition.
People will walk right into it.
But it's a lot of times it's just cancel.
And that's the same problem we ran into with Absorb and Undermine, was that it was just like, I don't want to have to go out of my way to cast Counterspell.
Since we are in this section, by the way, as the chat is bringing up, with many an exclamation point, Shardless Agent.
Not a fan.
Not a fan.
Not a fan.
Stop it. I don't like that card.
I understand people's arguments for it. I understand that it's like, well, it's just blatantly a 2-for-1, just like any other Cascade spell. It's like, mini Bloodbraid Elf. You're going to cast it, and you're going to hit a ramp spell, so it becomes like a rampant growth creature, or you're going to hit another guy, and it's just like Bloodbraid Elf. To me, those are the things in the 4 column.
The thing about Shardless Agent is, like, it sees play in Legacy.
Okay, what does that have to do with this conversation?
I think that it's a lot better in Legacy because you could play Force of Wills in multiples, so you're not hitting your counterspells necessarily as often. Like, you can't play counterspells with Shardless Agent in Cube. If you hit Mandrain with it...
I mean, yeah, you probably Mandrain your guy, and then next turn you got 3 more mana.
It's so bad. Like, it's just not going to do a lot.
Yeah, I mean, the blue-green decks we have in our cube are a lot more tempo-based, and there are a lot of times where you're gonna hit instants that you don't necessarily want to cast. Would they be the most likely counterspells, but not less likely to be combat tricks? But you could still be hit a Cynic Charm off of it. That's kind of weird. Yeah, I don't think hitting Mana Drain off of it is all that spectacular.
No.
Although someone did Bit Blast to Mana Drain once.
Go ramp.
On purpose. Not like... Let me rephrase that.
They Mana
Our
Drain
opponent casts something, and they're like, wait a second, Bit Blast your guy. Oh, I hit Mana Drain, counter your spell.
Nice.
That's
good.
That's a scenario that I will never forget.
So I think Sky Swallower and Void Slime, though, are at the bottom of this list if anything was going to change.
Void Slime will probably be the first to cut, just because, again, you can Natural Order into some Sky Swallower. I drafted a deck a few weeks ago where I could remove it to Force of Will or Natural Order for it. That was real good.
Master Biomancer is one that's currently on the outside looking in. He's quite good. He's a little on the slow side. He's pretty sweet.
Is he? He's like if a guy enters battlefield, put counters on him or something?
Yeah.
I mean, he's like a vanilla 2/4, right? He is kind of a combo card. I mean, I do like the kind of pretty good combo card that kind of like mashes together.
Plus, if you pump his power, it makes the other stuff come in bigger.
Really?
Yeah.
Crack that guy open. I must not be entirely sure. Each other creature you control enters with an order of plus what equal to and is a mutant.
So you slap a Bone Splitter on that bad boy?
So every guy you come to the battlefield after him, it gets +2/+. So you go the goal is to cast this, untap and Hermit Druid or something, or sorry, Deranged Hermit.
Giant growth it and then Deranged Hermit
because that's necessary.
Yeah, you gotta go
playing an army of 4/4.
Yeah, you go really big.
Isn't good enough.
Prime Speaker Zagana is also one that's currently on the outside looking in. I personally have been kind of rallying switching Sky Swallower for Prime Speaker. Prime Speaker, I think, is cool. It's a lot of fun. It plays well with a lot of other cards in Cube.
Talk about things I want a Phantasmal Image, though. That's Simic Sky Swallower. That guy just wins games. You can't stop that card.
I understand. I'm not saying Simic Sky Swallower is bad.
You can find Biomancer with Imperial Recruiter. That is a good case for Imperial Recruiter. Is it? I don't know if it is.
I think Imperial Recruiter is fine.
I think Imperial Recruiter is fine as well.
It's just a weird outlier in red of that is just not at all.
Maybe kind of a weird combo card.
Yeah.
I love Simic Sky Swallower. I mean, there's no card that makes me again, talking about.
Simic Sky Swallower versus Deadly Recluse. Cube needs more Deadly Recluse. I agree with that guy.
I do like me a Deadly Recluse. Not enough to put it in Cube though.
Black Green. Black Green is also much like Green White. The maximum redundancy of destroying permanents of varying types.
I would consider it more like Red Black actually in its redundancy.
Oh well, I mean,
Green Black is hilarious, but Green Black is the best 2-color combination at making stuff dead.
Yeah, removal, master removal, Planeswalker that's rules of removal.
Yeah,
and a guy.
I love Spiritmonger. Spiritmonger to me is similar to Shadow Mage Infiltrator, where I feel like I'm going to hold on to it for a long time because I have my love for it.
It's still good, though.
Yeah, I think that's the thing that people really undervalue, is how just good Spiritmonger actually is.
I can't believe how old that card is, too. Like, I think if they printed Spiritmonger now, I might even see play. Like, it's at the power level, like, they've gone through so many years of, like, making creatures better, that this is still, like, good enough. And it's however many years old now?
I don't know.
Like,
well, I mean, I know how old it is, but that's not the point. Yeah, it was the unofficial first you make the card.
Yeah.
What that guy was.
So...
I always want to see Mongrel before Lotleth Troll. So we was talking about Lotleth Troll. Lotleth Troll is fine. I think, again, you know, Grizzly Salvage, Lotleth Troll are the cards that are waiting to be put into Cube.
Putrid Leech?
Dread Mangler, also.
Putrid Leech?
Putrid Leech has been in the Cube for a long time and got cut a long time ago.
I know. I think
if we were to cut one of these, actually, we'd probably cut Vraska.
Yeah, maybe. Vraska very often is like, come down, destroy a permanent, get killed. Is that good enough?
Yeah, it's like a slow, vindicate, gain life type thing.
Yeah.
And
like,
there are some games where it just kind of upsets loyalty and doesn't do anything.
She has been pretty unexciting. I could see cutting Vraska.
I can see cutting Vraska for Dread Mangler or Lotless Troll or Grizzly Salvage.
Lotless Troll also plays well into what we've been kind of angling for, especially with Black lately. Like having more...
Lotless Troll deals with the graveyard?
Like graveyard and like recurring out of the graveyard and getting value out of that.
So is Grizzly Salvage.
That's certainly true.
Grizzly Salvage. Go deep.
Like, Lotless Troll, like, is sweet.
Yeah, it's sweet. It's fine.
Alright, so into the magical land of the three
color conundrum.
So some of these I feel like are pretty obvious. Band Charm is just very good. All the modes are constantly relevant, especially in Cube. Hellkite Overlord is a bows. Like, cheating that guy into play feels so disgusting. Nicol Bolas Planeswalker, also, anytime that guy hits the table, it is very quickly GG's. Sphinx is one of the best reanimation targets, and also is a tinkerable one. Like,
agree with all the things you're saying.
I really like Who, What, When, Where, Why. I know it's not auto-carding, but that's a sweet one.
What's not relevant? Oh, Who, What, Where, Why. Go back to Maelstrom Wanderer.
I'm going to go back to Maelstrom.
Now, Maelstrom Wanderer is a card that, initially looking at it, I really wasn't sure. It felt like it was just super overcosted. You weren't sure what you're getting into. But talk about a card that's worth playing in a green deck, touching a third color for. This guy does all kinds of cool stuff that I just did not expect to have it happen. And he's really kind of cemented himself in the Cube in my mind from initially being unsure. I mean, it's almost a card that I would be willing to reanimate as a 7-power haster that also gives all my other guys haste.
It's true.
But then on top of that, the fact that, you know, when you're the green ramp deck and you just cast this guy, even if he gets countered, you're still getting a 2 for 0, or 2 for one of your opponent's ones out of it, and hitting big spells off of it is amazing.
I remember I had the wacky 5-color deck, and I Maelstrom Wandered into Elish Norn, and on Burial Rites targeting Greater Gargadon. I won that game.
Yeah, that's GG's right there, yeah.
Yeah, he's sweet, and Maelstrom Wanderer also is a great source of stories. Like...
Tell me these stories.
No, I mean, like he's a great example of, like, a very splashy...
Oh, similar to, like,
you're
talking about, like, Chaos Warp type things?
Yeah, like, you'll never believe what happened.
If you put this card in your Cube...
Like I was just talking about.
Fun circumstances will come up.
Yeah.
Agreed. So you've kind of, like, gone back and forth on stuff. Are you trying to get to, like, what you don't like?
I like Dromar's Charm.
Dromar's Charm is the best charm of all the charms, hands down. I'm willing to stamp that on something.
Yeah, A1 double plus charm.
Anytime you cast it to gain 5 life, you also get some kind of achievement. I'm not sure what it is, but the set of circumstances where that's the win is amazing.
Sliver Queen?
That's my pet.
I know.
I love my pet Sliver Queen.
That's fine. And I mean, it's okay. It's a 5-mana 7/7.
To me, Sliver Queen is maybe it's a one-off in Cube. Maybe it's not the best choice, but there's nobody that doesn't, like, open it in a pack or see it in a draft and didn't get a good smile out of it and remember Sliver Queen. and enjoy it for what it was, even if it's you're passing. I mean, when we first built Cube many years ago, I remember putting in 3-color Legends just to kind of have that same feeling. You know, you said your Angus Mackenzies, your Gwendolyn de Courcy's. You see them and you're kind of like,
that was
probably not going to take this. But man, I remember Magic back then. That was cool.
Gwendolyn de Courcy was sweet.
She can make a comeback. Tell me she can make a comeback.
She can make a comeback for Damien Sagerstone.
So now would be a good time to go over. And recently we had this conversation. X like, I hate Damia. Hate this card. Doesn't do anything. And I'm like, fine. You know, pose me what you'd want to replace it with. And we came up with a reasonable sized list that you've closed again.
That was poor choice of mine.
Of 3-color spells that, or 3-color just cards in general, that search for like one of the cards on that list.
I got it. It's fine. So,
and I'm not 100% one way or the other, but you know, on that list we had Empirical Archangel, Dromar the Banisher, Lightning Angel, Numot the Devastator, Teneb the Harvester, Stoic Angel, and maybe the best, Rafika the Many. All of those were perfectly, in my mind, they're perfectly reasonable, but they're not like, none of them were like super exciting, and none of them were unique as Damia is unique.
No. I think that my problem with Damia is just she just doesn't get cast or picked all that often. But at the same time, like we developed that list, that was a few months ago now that we were looking at that. Imperial Archangel is a sweet one. I think that it's very likely that at least one of the split cards from Dragon's Maze will be good enough. They're the gold ones to potentially take Damia out for.
That's still like a hope.
Yeah, that's a hope. It's a, you know, obviously that's an assumption, but I think that, you know, that's certainly a place to potentially go. I like Broodmate Dragon. This is not a color balanced section. It's kind of just like slapping 10 cards together. So Broodmate Dragon is certainly one that could make the cut.
You know, earlier in the show you were talking about any card anywhere. Oh, sorry, auto card anywhere.
Yeah.
I like how in the chat Norbert has put, I run Wild Nacatl as a Naya card, and your auto card has not taken Wild Nacatl and auto carded it.
It's Run Wild.
It's taken the card Run Wild.
Yeah.
Which I really like.
Yeah. It works left to right.
Because to me, like, I remember playing that card in Odyssey Limited, and I'm like, Run Wild? That's a crazy combat chain. I'm like, wait a second, that's not what we're talking about at all.
Yeah. So, anyway, I think other 3-color section, I've been kind of trying to push Damia off the cliff. It's still there now.
For me, of the 3-color cards, I want them to all hopefully do something really different. I want them to have a different feel and different effect. And having access to a draw 7 is very different. It's different in a way that you're not going to be able to replicate anywhere else in the 3-color section. Yeah, sure, Empirical Archangel has like that shields up maneuver, which you may or may not have access to in a lot of other stuff. But, you know, I like Damia. I think we might have a little bit of redundancy in something like Cruel Ultimatum. Like, Cruel Ultimatum is one of those really feel-good haymaker cards where it's like, I put all this time and energy into making this thing happen, and then when it happened, it's like, boom, fireworks go off.
It's weird. It's like we put that card in Cube, and I never saw it for a long time. And then just recently, I think I've seen it like 3 out of the last 4 weeks. Like, either I've had it or someone else has had it. It's been like this weird, like, it lay dormant for months, and then all of a sudden now
waiting to surface and smack. Okay, so I mean, the conversation is more open on 3-color cards. And again, last week when we talked about artifacts, I think the important thing as a cube builder and cube designer is be aware of what you want your multicolor cards to do. And for us, it's finding that balance between the most powerful cards in Magic and also what fits in with those archetypes. I mean, maybe we should have done this episode right after we did the guilds episodes, but just kind of worked out that way. And then 3-color, I really think, you know, old are the days of the rigid color commitments on your expectations of what you want to be in those sections.
It's been a long time since you had to include every card without a cycle.
Yeah.
So to speak.
You know, not that long ago, we were playing Oros the Avenger and Numot the Devastator and...
What was the black, green, blue one?
Fungal Shambler, baby.
No, the dragon.
Oh, that's, I know, Vorosh the Hunter.
Vorosh the Hunter.
It took me a second there. The one that doesn't have trample, but its effect is if it hits you, then you can make it bigger.
Yeah. So, okay. Anyway, we got through a lot today. I think we're pretty much out of time. But,
Gold cards, again, it's hard to really like try to comment on them because they're mostly subjective, and the best advice I could really have is know your know what you want to get out of it. And for us, I want monocolor strategies to still be viable, so multicolor kind of lays a little bit more dormant in that regard. And I think if you're someone that likes maybe more of the Fields of Shards of Alara or original Ravnica Draft, don't feel like you need to follow more of these kind of strict rules. You can go to 100, 120 gold cards. You could have your monocolor sections be 50 or 60 cards. I think that could be a fun environment to draft in, but be aware of your mana fixing based on that. Have all the guild gates, have all the invasion tap lands, have
all of it.
Have all of it. I mean, I think that could be a fun draft environment for
Odyssey
Cube.
Filter lands.
You really like pushing those.
I know.
I don't know why.
I don't know why.
It's not like they're good.
Anyway,
so that's that. The last thing we have on our standard basic show notes info is updates on You Make the Card.
Black One.
Go team! I
We're
feel
now
like
on,
we had a little bit to do with that.
We're now on...
In the voting. We were one of tens of thousands.
I voted. So
we voted.
Or I helped. So now we're on Aura versus non-Aura.
Which felt like a bit of a throwaway week. I mean, initially when I saw it, I was like, oh yeah, we're all going to vote non-Aura and we'll just all move on. But the more I stopped and thought about it, I was like, Aura could be something. Because it doesn't mean, when we say Aura, it doesn't mean creature. We're not making a creature enchantment. We could make anything enchantment. It could be a land. I mean, we just got Underworld Connections, so I'd be surprised if we saw one better
Maybe
than
an
that.
enchant planeswalker.
What? It could be an enchant planeswalker. That was obviously the most open-ended talking point. It was like, if we made an enchant planeswalker...
Like enslaved for planeswalkers?
That would be good. I can get behind that.
I mean, I already voted this week. I voted non-Aura.
Yeah, I mean...
Because I already have in my head what I want it to look like. So I'm just like angling all my votes directly to that. So, I mean, that's just kind of how I've gone about it.
I think there's more space here. I don't
Yes.
fault anyone for kind of going one side of this fence or the other. I think that it's just going to be kind of fun to roll with the punches, and I think that we still have a lot of power as card creators if we end up as Aura or if we end up as World Enchantment, which no one likes saying, but whatever. So to me, go with your gut. Go with what you feel like this week. I kind of wish they'd both win because I'd like to see what we could do with both of them, but I'm not sad to have either. Just make sure you vote. Go to You Make the Card. This is our chance to really have an opportunity to be part of the process, so don't lose it. We don't want to reprint Carnival of Souls. Whatever.
Why not?
And I think we kind of powered through that last hour, but we're going to make it to about the deadline we wanted to. So at that point in time, we should talk about all of our resources and the things we hope to accomplish by having this little show here. And again, make a shout out to those of you on the East Coast that have shown up. We topped out at just over 70 viewers a day, which is great for what we're trying to hope for. Even though I thought that today's main topic was a little bland myself. Not quite.
Dragon's Maze spoilers? You kidding me?
I meant gold cards. Gold cards. Again, so much of Dragon's Maze will be gold cards. When we come back to spoilers next week, it's going to be
we're going to everything. Gold cards, spoilers.
We're going to be referencing the gold section a lot more. Yeah, we had a great response on the packs and the scenarios this week. For next week, I'll try to set a goal to make something a little bit deeper. Okay, that was just a really weird text. Anyway, so there you have it. We'll be back next week. Now it's time for some plugs. We've already talked about people we interact with on Twitter that we're going to have on the show soon. Look for Jay Bush. We'll try to get Usman as well. But Jay I've been trading some emails with. And we got MTGO Cube coming back soon. We are looking for donations. We can't bring you more than what we're doing now without those donations. We'd already like to give a shout out to... you don't remember? Can you bring that up? We're going to give a donation shout out to whoever hit us up.
I don't know.
That's a lot of work. We've got... I apologize. We'll get a full list of those for the next show. We'll make sure we get you. But again, stop by the Twitch page. Stop by the blog page. Anything you can ship us is going to go right back into the show. We want to bring you more stuff. We've talked about trying to cast from our Cube League drafts.
That is his name.
Wow, you can try to give that one.
Juha Linnanen?
From Finland.
From
Thank
Finland.
you very much. For our first donation, you will be...
If I butchered your name, I apologize.
For the record books, you will be... You'll
go on the plaque.
There you go. So again, a great way to support us. If you go to the blog spot, engage, leave your comments, leave your feelings there. We try to get back to everyone's questions. Obviously, in the live stream, if you're listening to this after the fact, you're downloaded it from somewhere. You can find it on MTGcast every week. They are currently up to speed with where we are.
Nice.
And hopefully they will be kind of keeping pace with us now, because for a while we were ahead of them and they were behind us.
Yeah, we had like iTunes.
We have an iTunes RSS feed which you can become part of as well.
Search for the Magic Box.
Search for the Magic Box.
My own personal blog keeps a list of all these episodes that you can download directly from ecomon.blogspot.com. All these links are also on the page info, as well as a link to our donation tab.
If you go to the Blogspot page, you'll find the Skeleton Cube list, which is a great reference point for anybody that's looking to start the cube that hasn't already.
Twitter, @YoungMecha, @Tristan Gregson. Hit us up. Questions, comments, anything about the podcast, we can get back to you from there. Reddit.
Try to be active on Reddit. Salvation seems to be a little bit more of a dead end. Reddit's a little bit more active. So, post stuff there. We'll try to get back to you. That's how actually we found Usman's thing from this week.
Again, also follow us on Twitch. I would appreciate it. Hit the follow button. If you're listening to this after the fact, make sure you just subscribe to the RSS feed so you get every episode as soon as it's uploaded. They're usually uploaded the night after we record. We're also on YouTube. YouTube, my username is Ekamon on there. All the videos get uploaded usually the night of or the day after.
If you're a listener looking to turn into a viewer that can't make it to the live cast, YouTube is a great way to do it because, again, there's a comment section that you can leave there. If we slowly get the ball rolling on that, it'll be a little bit better.
So,
but you can see the physical, pick a pack, pick scenarios right there in front of you.
Yeah, and again, hopefully soon we'll have more cube draft stream. I streamed a limited resources cube draft.
Yeah, we hope to have more of those again.
When schedules align,
other resources.
Doing more of those.
We're just rambling at this point.
Yeah.
Look for us to come back next week, maybe with a guest, maybe without a guest. We don't know. We will definitely have updates to You Make the Card. We will definitely have updates to Dragon's Way spoilers. We have how we feel about it. We already have a preliminary list of changes we'd like to make to Cube post Dragon's Maze. It's a surprisingly exhaustive list. We knew we weren't going to have time to get to it today, but we will have an updated version for you that we will be opening up the dialogue to with you, the viewers, in the coming week as we lead up to Dragon's Maze. I think that the initial list of changes we wanted to make was something like 60 cards, which was ridiculous. But in those 60 cards, we had the fetch land, bounce land conversation.
There are a lot of changes that we'll get to,
which we'll bring back. We'll bring back next week, and that's an exciting element that I really wanted to have on the show at the inception of this video cast was going through the process of the changes and the things that we talk about, the ideas we bounce off of other people we know, and how they feel about things. And now we can engage a larger audience about it and kind of have that conversation through a lot of people, which is a lot of fun. I mean, the element of spoiler season that's most exciting to Cube players, it's not how is this going to impact Standard or how is this going to impact Legacy. It's a lot more about, ooh, I really want to play with this card. I don't think we have room for that card. Or, what draft strategies does this enable if we add this card? Or, this is good, this just isn't good. Let's have a dialogue about it. That's really exciting. So the upcoming change list is going to be a lot of fun. That'll be an element of the show that will take up a lot of time and slowly kind of push our main topics out, which is going to be awkward between pick-a-packs and pack scenarios and updates. But that's something that is going to come with spoiler season. So it's a lot of fun right there. I think we've exhausted it. We've really spent that last 5 minutes kind of talking about the future. So